from my point of view, I wanted to start today with a really big story that is trending, and it comes directly from David Ornstein, who many take as arguably the most credible football journalist and transfer journalist in the UK and potentially across Europe as well. He has stated that Thomas Tuchel wants the Manchester United job. We have seen Thomas Tuchel in press conferences in the last day or two speak of his love of playing in England and how special it would be to win tonight and go back to Wembley, how he enjoyed his time here. He knows his time's up at Bayern Munich, even if he becomes a two-time Champions League winning manager. He wants the Man United job. Boys, how good and or bad appointment would that be for United in your opinions?
Absolutely shambolic. I'm going to start.
Go ahead.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
It's absolutely shambolic, right? Thomas Tuchel is going to go to their club, does the same like he does for every club, right? Apart from Man United being absolutely in an absolute terrible situation still with all the players and the divas in the team, Thomas Tuchel is going to go to the club, might win them an FA Cup or something like that, reach a cup final. They might go a little bit far in the Europa League or whatever. And then he's going to fall off with some of the players, right? Or the owners or the board. And then he leaves the club with no style of play. The players haven't learned anything from him like he did with Chelsea. And they had to start over again. So for the people that say, but he can win us a cup or something. Yes, but you want to look long term. You need to develop Kobe Mainoo, Garnachos, Amad Diallo. You need Lisandro Martinez in a style of play. You cannot just live with a coach that come in and win something and then leave your club in a shamble play. Thomas Tuchel had never had a style of play, not in Paris Saint-Germain, not in Borussia Dortmund in the beginning, not at Chelsea, not at Bayern Munich. Ask any Bayern Munich fan. If Man United hired Thomas Tuchel, I think he takes them back 2 steps, even if he wins them a cup or 2. Because this guy has no style of play. You better go with De Zerbi. Because even if it doesn't work with someone like De Zerbi, even if it doesn't work and he doesn't win trophies, he will leave your club when the new manager comes in, right, with something to work with, something to build on. I'm going to give you an example of this. When Graham Potter was at Brighton, when he left Brighton, De Zerbi came in, something to work with, right? When Thomas Tuchel left Chelsea, Graham Potter had to start from scratch, and there was nothing to build on. My thing about it, if Arteta leave Arsenal next season, if he doesn't win the Premier League or the Champions League or doesn't win trophies, the new manager that comes in, after 5 years of Arteta, you cannot sit here and say Arteta has been not successful. Why? Because he embedded a style of play. He embedded the culture in the club. You don't hear Arsenal players in the media being diva. You don't hear that. We don't hear about Arsenal player did this, Arsenal player said that in the media. Someone is unhappy. Someone is this and that. And I'm saying the difference is, if you get Thomas Tuchel, your players are not going to learn anything. You're not going to learn anything. You need someone, and it can be someone other than De Zerbi. By the way, it can be Javi Hernandez, but he's now staying at Barcelona. Someone from that caliber, someone who has a specific way of playing.
I understand what you mean by a specific way of playing. I understand that. When you say that he left Chelsea in a bad way, wasn't that more to do with Clearlake coming in, tearing up everything from before, not seeing eye to eye with him and moving him on? I don't think you can blame Tuchel for the situation that he left Chelsea in, because he came in under the Roman era, which wasn't renowned for having a set style of play. It was renowned for, we buy the best possible players we can, bring in the best possible manager we can, and try and win instantly. They then had a takeover where he was basically dismissed before he even had because he saw football in a different way to the owners, who we're now criticizing for not running it well. So I understand a lot of the criticism at Tuchel, but he surely can't be blamed for messing Chelsea up. That's
What
surely...
about Bayern?
What about Bayern?
Okay. If you ask
any
Chelsea...
You say Bayern, I'll ask you about Bayern. So I feel like I'm defending my own manager here, and I'm not even sure if I want Tuchel, and I'll get onto that in a bit. But Bayern Munich got rid of Nagelsmann. They got rid of Nagelsmann, and they realized it was such a mistake. In the last few months, they begged him to come back. They've also been rejected by 4 or 5 managers that they want to replace Thomas Tuchel, which tells you they are far more going wrong at the club at a board level than maybe in many years gone by for them. I don't think, again, Tuchel is the reason that Bayern Munich didn't win the league this year directly. I think he's a part of it. I think he is part of the problem. I'm not saying he's completely blameless. The fact they turned back and looked at their old manager to say we shouldn't even sack you. How is it conducive for a manager to produce at a club that sacks manager A, they appoint you, and then within a year or so, they're asking that old manager to come back?
Because you don't have embedded anything.
Both those things are more about the way the clubs are being run at that particular moment in time, making mistakes over Thomas Tuchel.
No, but that actually supports Mo's point a bit more, and I'll tell you why. If you sack Eric Ten Hag, and essentially a year later you want Ten Hag to come back, as bad as he is right now, then that shows you that whatever the new manager is doing is just not working at all. And I'll tell you this about Thomas Tuchel. I think Thomas Tuchel is the most overrated manager in world football. I genuinely, deep down in my heart of heart, believe this, and I've been saying this for the last 2 years. I think there is no difference between Thomas Tuchel and Roberto Di Matteo. Both of them came in mid-season at Chelsea, won them the Champions League, and after that, they just fell off. There is genuinely zero difference between them whatsoever. Di Matteo just never got a chance to manage a Dortmund or manage a Bayern Munich. I mean, we have short-term memories. Last season, Terry always says he backs the underdog. Last season, we were all sat there at the end of the Bundesliga season when all the other leagues were done. We were wishing Dortmund just win their home game. All Dortmund had to do was just win their game at home, and they would have been league champions. And Dortmund ended up losing that game, and that's why they ended up not winning the league. So this goes back to the point that even with there was no, Xabi Alonso and Bayer Leverkusen, and it wasn't a great Dortmund side or whatever, he still almost literally lost the league title and really only won it because Dortmund just couldn't deliver at the end of the season. I think the problem is, from a Man United perspective, is something there's bigger fish to fry now, no pun intended, but there is bigger fish to fry than essentially just hiring a manager that has some form of CV. You need to look at a long-term future. You need to look at, as Mo said, the development of the likes of Kobe Mainoo, the development of youngster. Because listen, whether people like it or not, whether they like Garnacho or not, whether they like Mainoo or not, whether they like Kambuala or not, they've got a crop of youngsters there that they can work around. They could sign a few promising young players. And giving that to Thomas Tuchel would genuinely be a recipe for disaster, because I don't think that's the type of manager that you want managing these type of players. And, I don't want to, obviously not dictating how the show works or anything, but there was a super chat earlier on sent where it says within 18 months everyone will be Tuchel out, and I actually agree with that. I really believe that the reality is this is the point that I'm kind of leading to here. There is no difference between hiring Thomas Tuchel now, Terry, and hiring Jose Mourinho back in the time, and hiring Louis van Gaal, and hiring whoever. You're just going for the CV. You're not going for the actual data and stats and information.
I get that claim. And as I say, I'm challenging some of the points raised, because I don't think they're all fair. Like I'll say this, most overrated manager in Europe. Would you still believe that if he has 2 Champions League winners' medals as a manager?
Yes.
For me, that then makes it a bit of that for me is then an exaggerated claim.
Can I answer that?
If a manager wins, and this is what I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to get onto why I'm not sure if I want him, and I'll round that up. But for someone to have won a Pokal, 2 La Liga titles, domestic trophies in France, Champions League with Chelsea, Bundesliga with Bayern Munich, if he was to then win the Champions League again and have all those trophies as the manager, to say he's the most overrated manager in Europe, again, I think is a little bit exaggerated. But you don't think that would be Mo?
Can I answer that? Okay, so he can be a very good cup manager. So he can go to a club, for example, Thomas Tuchel would work for a club like Bayern Munich, like Paris Saint-Germain, which is the club that normally wins the league. It doesn't need a genius to win the league with Paris Saint-Germain or Bayern Munich. He's a very good cup manager. There is a reason why he reached 2 cup finals in England and lost on penalties. Didn't lose in 90 minutes. He's fantastic in reading the game. You know what I'm at? Reading one game at a time. What Man United need today isn't someone like Thomas Tuchel. He will get you to a cup final. You need someone, because if you need someone to embed, not only, I'm not going to use the buzzword style of play. You need a club footprint. You need a whole team footprint from top to bottom. Will the youth teams play like the top team, the under 20, the under 18s play like the first team? That isn't Thomas Tuchel. Because if you ask any Chelsea person, what was Thomas Tuchel's style? What did he embed in the club? They will tell you, well, we actually don't know. He read one game at a time and he was good at it. That's why we won the Champions League and we reached cup final. What you need at Man United is someone that will have a culture, a cultural change in your club. That's not Thomas Tuchel. We're not saying he's overrated.
So
does that make sense?
Listen, I understand that challenge. I understand that challenge, and I respect the fact that you boys don't necessarily see Tuchel as the guy. There's a lot of Man United fans that don't see Tuchel as the guy. I mean, it's also married up with an article yesterday stating that Gareth Southgate is the #1 target, and that's like an alarm bell to me and a red flag to me. It's interesting. Whoever Man United, look, we are not getting Zidane. Doesn't want to come to England. We're not getting Pep. We're not getting Klopp. We're not getting Ancelotti. We're not getting Simeone. Those 5 managers are out, and I think they're 5 managers which there would almost be an element of either universal acceptance of or very good manager you've gone and got. Outside of that, there's question. I think you've got Inzaghi at Inter, who's just outside that category, but very close to it. I think everybody else comes with a big question mark. The Contes of this world, what you boys have just said about Tuchel, is it too short-termism for Man United? Then you go into all the other managers, and there's a variety of opinions on them, whether it's De Zerbi, whether it's Potter, whether it's Almiron. There is this kind of, I mean, Liverpool have just done it with Slot. There are big question marks over those individuals because they haven't been tried and tested either in the biggest leagues or at a big club, or they don't have a real solid winning pedigree behind them at the elite end of the spectrum or the bigger league levels as things sit in 2024. My sort of the element of me, though, keeping calm about it, and each manager for different reasons gets me, like when I think about De Zerbi, I go, oh, football could look really nice. But then I wonder, can he handle the pressure? What's his defensive elements going to be like? I think of Tuchel, and I think someone who is a winner and won every kind of trophy imaginable. Who am I to turn my nose up a potential 2 times Champions League winner by the end of this season? But equally, is he a long-term manager? You know, a couple of years at, I know he spent 5 or 6 years at Mainz, but it was a couple of years at Dortmund, a couple of years at Paris Saint-Germain. Everything's been quite short-term. And I do think as long as it's going well, we need someone that could do 4, 5, 6 years.
Yes.
So there's a question mark everywhere. And my sort of take on this, I suppose you could argue it's very much sitting on the fence. But my take on this is just Dan Ashworth is nearly in through the door. Jason Wilcott is here. Borada is coming in. We've got Blanc on the board, who has a great pedigree in the game. And between those 4 individuals, I'm going to put my faith in them, even if it goes against the grain for me personally. And I know as a football fan that there's sometimes that sort of there's sometimes 2 types of football fan when it comes to the social media world. I'm not going to yield on my own personal thoughts and feelings. I'm going to fight against it every step of the way. Or I'm just going to go with whatever my club says forever and defend it. And I feel that I'm just not that type of person anymore in either direction. I'm going to put my faith in it for a period of time, even if I'm not in full agreement of every decision, to see how it kind of cooks. But I'm going to give it as much positivity as I can to try and help it grow and flourish. That's how I'm sort of looking at this. So there is no manager we're linked to, barring the Zidane rumors a few weeks ago, that I'm buzzing about, where I'm like, wow, if we get him, I'm so excited about the future. There is a question mark over every single one. There really is for me. And that's why I do find it difficult to be completely yes or completely no to anybody. The only one I am completely no about is actually Gareth Southgate. And that's just because of the brand of football. And I know he's done an okay job with England, but at club level, there's no real experience. So I'm worried about that. At the same time, if you look where England are now, we're actually asking for a manager that can make us play better football. But he has been at the forefront of building an England side that everybody thinks can win. So maybe that is the right person. And that's what I mean by there's a question mark over everybody. And there's a pro and a con to everyone we're linked to. But there isn't a candidate where you go, he's renowned for building teams, he's renowned for building projects, but he's also a serial winner. That person doesn't exist as far as I can see. And maybe the viewers will disagree.
Doesn't exist for Man United.
No, yeah, for our situation right now, it doesn't exist. It doesn't
exist for you guys because you're.
Does he exist in general? Who's the guy?
Who is the guy, Mo?
The only guy that came in, and it's Simeone at Inter. Remember, he came after Conte, and
your guy.
No, but there is another guy, Xavi Hernandez, for example.
There you are.
You remember Xavi Hernandez, bro? They're giving Xavi Hernandez scraps, bro. They're giving him scraps, and he won the league. There are managers, they just might not join Man United because Man United aren't as attractive as before.
I think you know what it is. Take the Crystal Palace manager as the perfect example, Terry. That might be the direction you need to head in. Someone like a Glasner, someone that no one knows about, who has
Why
a
are you laughing, Mo? Why are you laughing?
someone who has like a specific style.
Because I told you that before, and you kind of like attacked me, and you said, "No, we are still very attractive."
I didn't attack you per se. I didn't attack you per se. I still think, again, I'm not in the room. Okay. I still think with the right board, with the right approach, you could still attract a good quality manager. I still think it's doable if the project is seen out as attractive, but it needs to be, again, Zidane may not want to be the person that starts a real, I mean, we are, for the first time in a decade, we are genuinely starting a rebuild off. And we've already started it by getting rid of all the football decision makers and bringing them in first. They're the key component. You know, if KJ's leaving the football terrace, but I'm going to expand and I'm going to have a new KJ and 4 or 5 members of staff working for him, I've got to get the new KJ first, because he's got to help employ the people that he's going to manage, because he's going to be their direct line manager. So we have already started the rebuild. And KJ, ironically speaking to him, tweeted this the other day, and it should have got far more traction from United fans than it did. This is like nothing we have done before since Fergie retired. This isn't like the sacking of one manager and bringing a new guy in. Most things are being cleared out. Most things are going. It is going to be I think the players are going to come back to Carrington in the summer, and it's going to look and feel very, very, it may not physically look different straight away, but it's going to feel very different in terms of approach. And even one thing that KJ said the other day as well, and I don't like to plagiarize other people's words, but this was so, it was so interesting, is that as bad as we are right now, there's very few leaks from players coming out the club. There's very little noise coming out the club other than about the manager's future, which is understandable. Compared to what I'm used to seeing as a Man United fan. And I think all those changes are there. This is a funny comment here that says Terry only talks about news that he likes. And people are saying I haven't mentioned Southgate. I literally mentioned Southgate a minute ago. And that he's been, some outlets are saying he's the favourite to become the Man United manager, David.